This is an interesting one for Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. This is from the Claim of Right. It says that the nominating and imposing magistrates, councils and clerks upon boroughs contrary to their liberties and express charters is contrary to law. So the charters give out the rules and regulations for the elections and the processes for elections. To be honest, I think the whole electoral process is completely and totally perverted now to what it's meant to be. The American one's in pretty bad shape compared to what the Constitution set out. But what I'm wondering on this is, it says the nominating and imposing magistrates, councillors and clerk upon the boroughs, right? Well, even if you vote them in lawfully through the proper process, contrary to their liberties and express charters it says nominating and imposing them, right? So nominating them is electing them, right? Now the Durats was a free open nomination. People could choose who they wanted to nominate. You didn't have these candidates who were put forward. Like we voted, because there were a lot smaller areas back then. We voted. Everyone voted for who they wanted the Durats to be, right? But for the mayors, they started putting forward these candidates. Like the mayor would choose 3 people, and then we'd pick from them. Although I don't know if all of that's against Magna Carta, really. But anyway, that's a separate issue. So the nominating of the magistrates, councillors, clerk, sheriffs, etc. on the boroughs has got to be a lawful process. But the imposing the magistrates, the councillors and the clerk, that means that, surely that means once they're elected to office and they're imposed on the authorities are imposed on the area, the magistrates, councillors, clerks and so forth. It says, contrary to the liberties and express charters is contrary to law. I'm wondering if that also means, besides that the unlawful nomination of them all is contrary to law, but also once they're in office, imposing themselves upon the people contrary to law is illegal. Because those charters contain like the election processes and slightly different variations of procedure for each charter for each place. Although everywhere's meant to be under Magna Carta, isn't it? But also, all those charters have got liberties, right? All those, particularly the London ones. The reason that I bring this up is that the London ones, it's meant to be called the liberty of the city. It's meant to be called the liberty of the city, the freedom of the city. And you comply with and abide by the laws because it's meant to protect everyone. And it's meant to be the wild places in between that are meant to be lawless, right? I think it's quite the opposite now. I think the countryside currently is quite free, but they're imposing all these heavy movement restrictions, blocking streets off, all these fines, these new ULEZ charges, all kinds of things where you can't even go there now if you haven't got any money or move around. And even for the people who live there, it's not liberty anymore. You're not escaping like the outlaws in the woods to get into the liberty of the city anymore. What's happening is that the city is not freedom anymore. The city is complete and total authoritarian surveillance, claiming it's for your good. But, they built the city up that bad that, now they're claiming that, it's polluting and too crowded and so forth, that the amount of restrictions they bring in, it removes all sense of liberty whatsoever. And I think that there is no liberty. I don't think there is any liberty in the city anymore. And on that basis, I actually think that there's a claim that the current mayors of London and the government have actually taken away the liberty of the people, taken away freedom of just like freedom of travel and all kinds of things. Now, this is from the claim of right. Now, let's go to Magna Carta, because there are lots of different charters for London, and obviously the London Mayor is making up rules and laws and regulations, right? So they will be the equivalent of the charters. But it says to their liberty and express charters, but the new laws aren't liberty. The new laws aren't liberal. The new laws that they're passing and putting into effect for London are not in any definition of the term creating or securing or safeguarding liberty, right? Now, hold on a second. Now, this is actually from Magna Carta, and on legislation.gov, it's got it sort of laid out quite in a strange way. It's got it in a strange way, right? And the problem is with this is clause 13, supposedly, right? There are only 4 clauses in effect in Magna Carta, and I think one of them is the opening parts to it. And then you've got 39 and 40, which are mainly legal principles. But then you've got this, which is meant to be 13, I think, as it says that it's 13 when you look it up on Parliament website, and not that's separate to legislation.gov. But this is what it says. This is still in effect now. So this is actually in effect in Magna Carta. So this is like an underlying legal principle that really all legislation has to be compatible with and not in contradiction to. And this is actually for London. But it's actually, the title of it is the Liberties of London. So obviously Magna Carta was before the claim of right. But the claim of right saying that, effectively that the mayors, councillors, clerks and so forth have got to uphold the laws and liberties, but they can't be imposed unlawfully, right? Now, the thing is, that means that this Magna Carta clause has got to be applied, and they can't impose themselves contradictory to this, right? And this is what it says. It says that the City of London shall have all the old liberties and customs. Old liberties and customs. This is the current wording on it, by the way. It shall have the old liberties and customs, which it have been used to have. Moreover, we will and grant that all other cities, boroughs, towns, and the barons for the 5 ports and all other ports shall have all the liberties and free customs. Right? But what are the old liberties? What are the old liberties? And when we get to set out what these old liberties are, have we still got them? I don't think that they have. Because what they are doing at the moment with all this surveillance and, like Big Brother watch, facial recognition and so forth, and then all this like ULEZ movement, having to pay money and fines just to basically go out of your house and move around, that cannot be categorised as liberty or classed as liberty in any way under the word what does liberty mean. The idea of it, the principle of it, in effect, was supposed to mean that, you're under the protection of the city, and I know that there's lots of crime in the city and so forth, but there's a conversation in the House of Lords from the, 1800s when they said, like we've, expanded, built up London has grown and prospered, but crime's gone through the roof, so they had to reform a lot of the laws, right? Well, they knew that the crime exploded with the explosion of the Industrial Revolution and expansion in the 1800s. And what they did in the mid 1800s is take the jury out of the court, magistrates' courts. So you've just got the magistrate there going bang, 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 bang with a hammer, getting people, right? You don't have a judgment of the peers. And I don't think that is justice, according to Magna Carta either. And also, it didn't seem to bother them. I think a lot of people were making a hell of a lot of money and they didn't really care that crime was going up as long as they got more law enforcement to sort it out, which means that whatever they were doing was creating more crime. And now they are complaining about this. They're in exactly the same position. It's like they haven't learned anything. I mean, you might as well pull Rishi Sunak up and go, look, you're saying, oh, what shall we do? All this crime. But they were in their exact position before. They were talking about it in the House of Lords. These geniuses, these genius MPs and barons who've got the answer for everything and the latest centre of innovation and technology. But they didn't solve the problem, did they? What they continued to do was make a hell of a lot of money and stick it in the bank and, make themselves very rich and have more and more people making their stuff. They didn't say, oh, what we'll do is, split the money over even between everyone and everyone shall have the, it's like, that Youssef guy, SNP in Scotland. He's like saying, oh, you can't say, there's no liberty. Surely, if you cannot speak freely in your own home, how can that be liberty? And this actually extends to other cities, boroughs, towns, and the barons of the 5 ports and all the ports. I wonder if that includes Edinburgh. I wonder if you can call Edinburgh under this as well. I wonder if you can actually call Edinburgh. I wonder if that falls under this. Because the claim of right definitely is for Scotland, didn't it? And it says that, I just read it out to you before, it says that, imposing the liberties and freedoms contrary to law is an offence. I'm sure that, surely liberty and freedom has got to be liberty and freedom, But they're trying to make out that you're encroaching on other people's liberty and freedom when you're in your own home. How can you be that's the whole point of going into your own home? If you're in your own home and someone outside down the road, you do something in your own house and that's imposing on their liberty and freedom, supposedly, that means that you don't have a home. There is no privacy. But this is part of the whole you will own nothing and be happy kind of thing. But you will have no liberty and no freedom because every single thing you can do encroaches on every other person's liberty and freedom. So therefore, in order to solve it, no one may do or say anything. Only what Youssef deems is adequate, no matter where you are. That's not liberty. That is not liberty, Surely. Now, it's not exactly the wild woods where you can't, you're not getting attacked when you're in your own house, surely. And if people don't want you to speak freely, why do they come around to your house, Go to have friends who you don't like to speak freely. There's something very wrong about all this, and I don't think that it's me that's wrong. I think we need to get into looking at what these old liberties and customs are, because those are the actual basis for it. And I think if I'm quite certain that this makes certain things illegal. Under the Bill of Rights, you've got evil counsellors, judges, and ministers, right? They are, they claim that, business of Parliament's for Parliament, but this is why you petition Parliament when you complain that they've done something wrong. If a grievance, like Parliament have broken the law. Parliament don't think that they can actually do anything unlawful or illegal, seemingly, unless it's like a misdemeanor, like Lord Hangfield, not paying his bills, like that's a misdemeanor. Not actually, when it comes to making the laws, there are certain things that you can't take away. or certain things you can't do, like taking away freedom of speech, like in the Bill of Rights, public meetings about things that are being addressed to Parliament in your own house. So, I don't think Youssef can take away people's right to do political matters in their own house and speak freely on that. That's for sure. So, the Bill of Rights is things that also cannot be done by ministers, judges, and councillors. Believe it or not, there's things that they aren't allowed to do, and when they do, it is unlawful, illegal. Even when they're going about making laws and changing laws, because they think they can make or change any law or do certain thing, but you can't do it if it is contrary to law, because that if it is against these other laws that say you can't do that. They seem to think they've got this right to tailor or streamline these things, but at what point in London are you trimlining and streamlining, leaving your own house when you've got to pay everywhere, when you actually live there? Or like, people who are homeless, they're a victim of, society, of all these, JC Decor billboards that are dominating the streets and pavements. But a human soul should be, cast aside, moved out of the way, treated as trash. Effectively, a victim is therefore made a criminal because we need to make more room for JC Decor adverts. Now, the pavements are meant to walk on by the citizens. The streets are meant to travel on by the citizens. They're not there for corporate entities to take pole position on the pavement. Or benches that are designed so you can't lay down on them, but then they're designing in Tokyo Airport, they're designing benches where, you can lay down for hours, they want you to because you paid expensive money for an airplane flight, but you can't lay down on the bench in London or sit on the floor in Los Angeles. It's not liberty. I think these, we need to look up these old liberties and customs, right? Because in Magna Carta, they're the ones that have got to be upheld. It's a little bit like in that seatbelt law, with Alistair Darling when he's like, oh, I'm going to prescribe 50 metres now. Yes, Alistair, but it was like the prescribed distance is what's prescribed by the company or the bus route or where you're delivering to. That's not in the legislation. No, I'm putting it in the legislation. Yeah, but it's referring to something else. It's like this. What are the liberties and customs? Well, let's go look, see what they are. The Magna Carta is the old liberties and customs that are to be preserved. Where are they? Well, it'll probably try and make out they don't have to preserve them because they're not actually in the Act. But no, the Act refers to something to them. Just like the seatbelt legislation refers to the bus routes or the delivery route or, whatever it is where you need to be driving to on your rounds, it's other than in the Act. But what are the prescribed? Put it this way, Alistair Darling with his eyebrows. What are the prescribed liberties and customs? Oh, we're going to prescribe some liberties and customs now for you. 50 metres of them, Oh, are you really, Alistair? Well, according to this, the liberties and customs are in the Magna Carta. So we'll have to go find out what they are and where they are. But it's their. What we say is they're briefed, they're summarised, they're referenced, they're given a citation. The citation of the reference of the liberties and customs of which we refer in law, in the Act, exit stage left, an advertisement or references to advertisements, legislation or references to things that are legislated for. So, I think that this could potentially have the Mayor of London breaking the law of Magna Carta if what he's doing currently can be found to be against these old liberties and customs, which we'll need to list in detail. So, I think someone needs to start looking into that could possibly be that a lot of these things that they're planning on London are unlawful, and they're taking away liberty